If you listen to the show, you know we have a huge focus on product. That's why we also talk about Solana a lot because it's cheap, it's fast, and it's ready for these applications today. So that's why today we're joined by Emon, who leads product at Solana Labs. Emon is an extremely sharp product mind. He actually started the digital currency team at Reddit before joining Solana Labs. So in this conversation, we talk about what Solana Labs is, what teams are doing right, what they're getting wrong. We also talk about Solana Labs' new Incubator program, which helps Solana applications with strategy, with fundraising, with their launch, and a whole lot more. Applications for that are actually due at the end of the month. So I'll put a link in the show notes. Go check that out today. This interview is shorter than usual. It's only about 30 minutes. So I hope you enjoy. Happy Thanksgiving. And now let's get to the show. How would you describe Solana Labs? Because there's Solana Foundation, there's Solana Labs. If you describe the differences between those and what you focus on.
Yeah, so Solana Foundation is a nonprofit focused on pushing forward the Solana ecosystem as a whole. Solana Labs is a for-profit where we're actually building the products, the tooling to help the ecosystem push forward. And I think because of that, within the sort of for-profit arm, not only can we actually build and launch products, but we can be a little bit more opinionated in terms of how we want to push the ecosystem forward. We don't have to necessarily have as much of the same sort of credible neutrality that we want to promote everything going on in the ecosystem. And that kind of fills into this incubator as well, where we want to support a small number of teams and do everything we can for them to be successful, rather than, hey, let's take 50, 100 teams across the ecosystem.
Anatoly is the CEO of Solana Labs. Is that right? Or was he?
Yeah, correct. No, he is.
Okay. Yeah. It's got to be a pretty cool team to work for, I would guess. How big's the team roughly?
I would say the numbers shift. I think we're 50 to 100 people, somewhere around there. Really technical folks. And I think a lot of the products we built, folks would be familiar with. We built the first validator client for all of Solana. We built Metaplex. We built Realms. We built Token 2022. We built NFT compression. So a lot of those key primitives in the ecosystem have tended to come out of Solana Labs.
One reason we wanted to have you on is to talk about this incubator, because the big thing with not only Solana, but crypto in general is we want to have a focus on products. So when did this incubator come about and what is the focus? What are you helping teams with? And I'm asking a lot of questions, but what type of teams are you looking for?
Yeah, I'll start with some history on it and then can transition into the current day. So, I mentioned up front, we've been doing a lot of reference implementations in the DeFi space. And with these, we would kind of put out a smart contract that we had built around a specific product that we think could be successful in the ecosystem. And then we encourage teams to come and build on top of that, launch a UI, launch a company around that. And we would actually work really closely, hands-on with these teams to drive toward their success. And we saw we were actually able to add a lot of value to these teams, not only from a technical perspective, getting the contract integrated into their UI and whatnot, but also from the perspective of getting them hooked into the right folks in the ecosystem, getting them hooked into potential capital providers, whether on the market maker side, on the VC side. And we realized that, we are in a really unique position in the ecosystem where we have all of the bruises and the learnings from the years of development that we've gone through for our own products. We've built up the blockchain expertise, the connections in the ecosystem. And so we said, hey, is there a way for us to scale these to teams in the ecosystem rather than just leveraging these for ourselves to build our own products? Can we actually use these to up level and accelerate the progress of teams in the ecosystem? And that's where this idea of the incubator was born. And then happy to go into more details about what it consists of.
I got a deal for you here that's hot off the press. Blockworks is hosting their premier institutional crypto conference in London this March. It's a 3-day in-person event where the top institutions, executives, and builders are all going to be under one roof. The best part is this week's Thanksgiving, which means Black Friday, which we're calling BlackRock Friday, because we're offering a 20% discount if you buy 4 tickets to DAS. Now, why would you want to get 4 tickets? Well, you're going to come and you're going to bring some friends or maybe some people from work. And not only do you get 20% off, we're giving these 4 embroidered Blockworks t-shirts that they won't even let me get my hands on. Thing is, this is hot off the press, but it's also going to go cold fast. This discount only lasts till November 27th. So use the discount code BlackRock Lightspeed. That's BlackRock Lightspeed. Yeah, I'll put a link in the description of the show notes so you can use that. Go by today and send me a message because I hope to see you there. All right, now let's get back to the show.
Well, thanks for that intro, Emon. I guess I'm curious what prompted this program to begin with. Like, why did you guys think this was necessary? What gaps did you see in the ecosystem?
Yeah, so one of the things we've realized just in working with teams is Above and beyond launching a Web 2 product, there's so many Web 3 specific hurdles that folks have to face when building on any blockchain. Hopefully, we're diminishing those hurdles by virtue of being on Solana. But some of the ones that come to mind, obviously, there's the blockchain integration piece, right? You have to learn the nuances of the blockchain, of the specific language that you need to develop on top of. But there's a lot of sort of more nuanced ones as well. Obviously, user experience design is a lot more difficult in the crypto ecosystem. We all know the challenges there. Let's say a team decides they want to build on Solana. Suddenly, they have to think about, hey, how do I embed myself within the Solana ecosystem? Who are the key players? How do I get involved here? How do I go out and raise capital for a crypto specific product when markets might be more difficult to raise in for Web3? How do I think through the operational challenges, right? The setting up a legal entity, figuring out tokenomics, and then monetization. Does monetization look different for a Web3 product versus a Web2 product? So we identified that there were a number of these sort of Web3 specific hurdles that have been historically unaddressed in the market, and that we thought, hey, if we could take the experience that we've had building products in the Solana ecosystem, scale that to a lot of these teams, and try to remove as many of these hurdles as possible. Let them just focus on the things that they're great at, which is knowing their customer really well, knowing the problem they're trying to solve, working toward that solution. Then can we potentially up level and accelerate the progress of these teams, where instead of them taking maybe 4 months to write that initial smart contract, when they're actually building alongside labs, when they're building alongside our blockchain engineers, that 4 months suddenly becomes a month and a half, and they're free to iterate on other parts of their product development cycle.
Mm. Yeah, I think this is really cool. How would you compare this maybe to something like Y Combinator or Plug and Play? Because I'm sure it's different. Like, one, are you taking equity upside in these projects? Or are you actually contributing funding at all? Or is it more just resources on like, we'll help you strategize, et cetera?
Yeah, it's a great question, and this is where I can probably give some background on the specific mechanics of the incubator as well. For us, the sort of tagline that folks might have seen on Twitter for this is build alongside Solana Labs, and we actually were very intentional in that wording, because this is truly the build alongside experience, where it's you're sitting down with our blockchain developers. Maybe they're even writing pieces of your smart contract. Maybe they're reviewing PRs. Maybe they're helping with that integration. You're working with our design team on the user experience for your product, on iterating to find that product market fit. We're helping put together the marketing strategy, the go to market, and not only just giving you the strategy, but actually giving you access to the lab's distribution channels. We have a large built-in audience. We have our Twitter, our LinkedIn, etc. You get access to the lab's brand as well. Having that Solana name and the weight of that behind you. And then finally, the network of connections, where we know so many folks both within the ecosystem and outside of the ecosystem. At Breakpoint, we had Google there, Shopify, Visa, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's truly, how do we put the full weight and muscle of Solana Labs behind these teams to push them towards success? And this is where, when you ask the question of how does this differ from a YC, we want to work with a really small number of teams. The number we've been citing is 4 to 6 versus hundreds of teams in a YC context. And the reason for that is the intimacy of the program. We want to be able to be really hands-on with these folks, rather than just providing kind of light touch advice and programming and maybe some speakers coming in. It's the true build alongside experience. And our intent with this program isn't, for there to be, hey, out of this comes 10 or 15 kind of small or mid-level type outcomes. Our intent is really, how do we use this to push forward the next Jupiter, the next Tensor, the next Magic Eden, the next Phantom into our ecosystem, really promote and help build these blue chip names on Solana for tomorrow.
And so you said 4 to 6 teams in kind of an intimate, close-knit community, let's say. I guess, in terms of when you're qualifying people who apply, are there certain characteristics that make them a better fit for this than others? Or maybe are there some characteristics that if you possess that you probably shouldn't apply? Like, for example, maybe you just raised Series A funding and it probably doesn't qualify, et cetera. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've been very excited to see, initially we thought that, hey, the majority of folks who are applying to this program are going to be kind of earlier stage teams, maybe hackathon winners, who are looking at this as a way to up level themselves. Um, but one of the things we've seen, we're at about 150 teams who've applied so far, is we actually have a lot of those big names in there as well, folks who are at a Series A, Series B stage, and look at this as kind of the unlock mechanism to really get to the next step in their development cycle. The sort of qualities that we've laid out for this program, we want to work with. It all comes back to the founders, right? We want to work with extremely strong technical founders who are building a product that we can see actually making a meaningful dent in the ecosystem, helping push the ecosystem forward. We are vertical agnostic. We're also stage agnostic. We would prefer folks who actually do have a product out in the market, who maybe have a little bit of traction. We'll probably take maybe one or two folks who are pre-launch, but who've shown meaningful progress to date. But being a little bit further along, having that traction is important to us. And then we also want folks who are doing this for the right reason. A big thing we said up front in starting this program was we don't want to just be providing things that these teams can get anywhere else. And Garrett, you'd asked the question about funding, about capital. We're definitely open to funding these teams. Solana Ventures sits within Solana Labs, and we'll look at that from a case by case basis in terms of what each of these teams needs. But at the end of the day, our perspective is cash is fungible. You can get cash from a lot of different places, but for us, it is that blockchain expertise. It's the go-to-market. It's the connections. It's everything else that we feel we're providing on a differentiated basis in the ecosystem. And so once again, it comes back to teams who are coming to us for the right reasons, and not just from the perspective of, hey, here's another capital provider. I did leave out in sort of the key benefits is we obviously have relationships with a lot of those capital providers, whether it's ventures, whether it's Solana Foundation grants, we've had a ton of VCs who are now interested in participating in this program. Whether it's market makers, whether it's someone else, like we're able to get these teams the capital they need, but it's making sure that they're coming to us for more than just capital, and for truly because that build alongside experience is virtuous for what they're trying to do in the ecosystem.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I am going to play devil's advocate because I know that people in the community will ask this at some point, if not bring it up in, let's say, an aggressive way. So I want to just maybe get in front of it. And that is, so if Solana, for example, Solana Labs chooses to support 4 or 6 of these teams because they believe they will help the network, and they believe that they will just generally help the future of crypto, and then certain people get cut out, those people are probably not going to be too happy about that. And maybe they will say something like, well, Solana is picking winners and losers. I guess, what is the right way to think about that? What would you tell those people?
Yeah, so I think I'd say a few things. One is, similar to YC, this is just the first cohort we're doing with this. We want this to be really a pillar of the ecosystem that folks can benefit from. And if a team applies, but they're at a too early stage, or maybe they haven't found the right technical co-founder or whatever it might be, there's going to be plenty of opportunities to apply again and go through this program again. So unfortunately, with space constraints and to keep it an intimate program, we are going to have to be selective about who we're picking. But I don't think that negates teams doing really amazing work elsewhere in the ecosystem. And we're probably wrong, right? There are going to be teams that do extremely well who we don't end up picking. And maybe that's for the best, right? If they did end up doing extremely well, maybe they didn't need us at the end of the day, and they were sort of self-sufficient on their own. The other thing I'd say too is, we've been pretty intentional about having this within Solana Labs as opposed to Solana Foundation, where Solana Foundation is the nonprofit arm. It maintains that neutrality across the ecosystem, where Solana Labs is able to be a little bit more opinionated in terms of who we're working with, what we're trying to push forward. And I think that distinction potentially will get lost on the ecosystem. I know it's a little convoluted, the different structures of these two organizations, but at least from a structural perspective, we were intentional about putting it within Solana Labs.
Yeah, Emon, I think these applications are due by the end of the month. Is this process still ongoing, or have you already filled up all the spots?
No, we intentionally aren't going to be filling spots until after the deadline. So the deadline's November 30th. There's about 9 or 10 days left before we hit that. So we're definitely encourage teams to apply. And the thing I'd say about going through the application process, one is we have a pretty good fluff detector. And so I would really encourage teams to just be genuine about where they're at, what they're trying to do, what they need from this program. even if it's, hey, we've launched a mainnet, we didn't get the traction we wanted right away, but here are the things we've learned. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that adaptability of the team, the ability to iterate. So even if you don't have a ton of traction, you're not at the Series A or Series B place, that's totally okay. Be honest with where you're at. There's also a question on there in terms of, how did you find out about this program? If there's someone who referred you to this program, if there's someone you've been working with on the Solana Foundation side, maybe that told you about this, feel free to list it there as well. And that way it'll help us just get some additional data points as we go through the process. And one thing I forgot to mention as well, when we talk about this being within Solana Labs, us trying to build the next Phantoms or Jupiters of our ecosystem, for us, sustainability is a big piece of this as well. How do we build sustainable businesses that will stand up on their own legs and actually generate revenue and be able to survive on their own? It's not enough just to put public goods out into the ecosystem. Public goods are obviously hugely important, and we have the Solana Foundation grants program to help promote public goods into the ecosystem. But we want to actually build real businesses that can sustain, that can monetize. And so thinking through it as it pertains to the application process, thinking through your monetization strategy, making sure you've thought about, hey, how will I generate revenue for this on an ongoing basis is also an important piece as well.
Would it be right to, maybe getting a little spicy here, would it be right to refer to Solana Labs to Solana as what Consensus is to Ethereum? In the sense that Consensus would also seek profit, and so would Solana Labs, but the names are obviously just different.
Yeah, I would say people have certainly made that comparison in the past. I think that to some degree, we're at somewhat of a transition point in terms of defining what is Solana Labs going to be going forward for this ecosystem. We are very blessed to have an amazing ecosystem of developers, where nowadays we don't have to be building every single product, every single primitive. And so you see us sort of shifting to more strategic things that we think can scale well and support the ecosystem. So one example obviously is this incubator, but another example, you guys might have seen the Game Shift launch, where we said, hey, gaming is a huge opportunity within Web3. How do we make it as easy as possible for someone building a Web2 game to incorporate Web3 elements into their game? And so we're building this gaming API to make that process as seamless as possible. And part of the reason for that was, hey, we saw that it was sort of an unaddressed opportunity in talking to gaming studios. And so I think it's looking for those sort of moments where we can come in and say, hey, the ecosystem isn't doing it, but we think it could be hugely valuable. Let us put our weight in there and build this thing or create this incubator to push everyone forward.
So I guess that brings up an interesting point, which is, would the focus be on, for people applying, would it be focusing on things that maybe don't exist? So maybe like a game SDK, or is there overlap of things that do exist, maybe like a different type of wallet, or I don't know, marketplace, but that just could be executed different? Or like, is there like a strict mandate on the verticals and like ecosystem overlap with competition?
No, there's no mandate from that standpoint. I think it's more the rationale for, let's say you're building a wallet, why this wallet's going to be successful, why there needs to be another wallet. When Google launched search, there was obviously a ton of people doing search, but it just did it way better. It did it at a 10x improvement, and that's what caused so many people to switch over to it. And so I think crypto will continue to evolve. All of the products in our ecosystem will continue to evolve, and so by no means are we saying, hey, we're only choosing things that don't already exist. But for the things that are being built that already exist, there has to be a pretty good rationale for why we need another one of these and why this can win the day.
Emon, this is a little tangential to Solana because this isn't happening yet. But as a product manager and someone that's in product, what do you think about teams going multi-chain, like kind of chasing the users? Because right now in Solana, right, like there's not another chain that's easy just to deploy your contract on. Maybe when Eclipse goes live and you have the SVM over in Ethereum land, you could do that. What do you think about that as a strategy? And do you think that's something that teams are looking at all in Solana today, or they will in the future?
I think teams definitely are looking at it, and if anything, I think that's when we go back to this notion of sustainable businesses, right? if folks are looking elsewhere and saying, hey, we've captured the Solana market, where can we grow from here? And we see an opportunity to go multi-chain. And we think our product is bringing a lot of value by being multi-chain. We definitely encourage that. I don't think that we need to say, hey, everything has to be built just in Solana and it can't benefit users elsewhere. You've also seen examples of, folks going multi-chain, and the fact that, they started on Solana, came to another chain. EVM users might see that and say, hey, we should pay more attention to this Solana thing. Clearly great companies and valuable companies are coming out of it. And so by no means do teams in this program have to solely be building on Solana. I think as we think about the incubator, if we've had a number of EVM teams apply where they're like, hey, we see we have meaningful traction on Ethereum, we have a great user base, but we've realized from a technical perspective, EVM doesn't let our solution scale in the way that we want, and now we want to come over to Solana, and we see the underlying blockchain scaling us a lot better. We love to work with teams in that context where we can actually help make that integration a lot easier. That being said, if there were an EV team who came over to us and was like, hey, we're interested in this incubator, we have no intent of building on Solana, obviously that would fall askew of our mandate. But in general, I think a multi-chain strategy is definitely a valuable one, assuming it's being done for thoughtful reasons.
So, okay, that makes sense. And I think the one thing I want to get across with this episode for people listening, because we have a lot of founders who listen to this, is maybe a very clear picture on exactly how they should think about this. Sorry, I haven't eaten food today. So is it right if I just reiterate to you? So you're looking for, obviously, business models that will make sense and make money and become successful and sustainable, I think is the word you used. Two is highly technical, right? The founders you're looking for are highly technical, right? And then I guess what are kind of the top three must-haves, and then maybe top three must-not-haves, like do not apply if you have this, like, if you're strictly going to just deploy on Polygon or something. Can you?
Yeah, I think so. If I take that question, top three must-haves, you name some of them, but I would say, technical team, obviously building on Solana, intending to build on Solana. Also, to the technical team piece up front, technical doesn't need to be technical from a Rust or a Solana perspective. It can be, hey, we're technical, we're building a Web2 product, we've never considered, blockchain smart contracts before, and so this is a way for you to learn that piece or get support on that piece. Technical can be, hey, we've written a ton of EVM contracts, but this is going to be the first Solana contract we're writing. So technical doesn't have to be Solana specific, but I'd say technical is a big one. Building or intending to build on Solana is a big one. And then ideally, this isn't a must-have, but it's a really nice to have, is some semblance of progress. Either you've already started developing, you're getting close to a GA launch, or you've already launched, you have some traction in the best case scenario. But ideally, it's not just, hey, I have this idea and I'm starting from scratch, I haven't found any co-founders, I haven't found anything else. That'd probably be going to your question now of, Mert, what to avoid. It's like, hey, if it's solely an idea, no team behind it, you're at the stage zero, I'd probably ideally avoid that. If you're like, hey, yes, I'm just going to deploy on Polygon, probably avoid that. And if it's, hey, I'm solely looking for capital from this program, I'd probably avoid that as well.
Maybe on a more general level and zooming out a bit, what are some just general tips you would give for founders and startups in the Solana ecosystem independent of this program? Like, what are some things you'd like to see more of? Some things you recommend doing, some things you recommend not doing?
Yeah, I think it's something I think about a lot. One of the things I see in our ecosystem for a lot of teams is sort of losing sight of the end customer and the end problem that you're trying to solve in service of the technology and in service of the sort of Web3 mechanics. In product development in general, but especially within blockchain world, it's very easy to fall prey to sunk cost fallacy, where you spend all of this time writing a smart contract, figuring out, the blockchain integrations. You launch, you're not getting, the usage that you maybe want, but you feel stuck in what you're building because you've already dedicated 3 or 4 months up front to getting the smart contract pieces right. And so for me, focusing on the user and solving their problems from day one, and then maybe even backing into the blockchain elements of that, I think is a much better way to go. And I'll use an example of that. So for Realms SPL governance, I know I alluded to it up top. It's our sort of DAO platform on Solana. We have about $500 million of TVL within that. We wanted to launch a new experience that was focused on how do we create more of like a home for organizations on Solana where they can manage their members, they can vote on DAO proposals in a more streamlined ways than we had in the existing realms. And as a proof of concept, rather than building that product with all of the Web3 mechanics built in from day one, we actually built what looked like a very Web2 product where we got it up and running in 2 or 3 weeks. We launched it. The Web3 hooks weren't quite in there, but we were able to generate so many learnings to help us decide, hey, do we want to keep pursuing this angle or do we want to stay kind of focused on the core DAO tooling angle? And because of the results and the learnings, we stayed focused on the DAO tooling angle. Whereas had we devoted 4 or 5 months to building all those Web3 hooks, we would have lost that time. We would have moved much more slowly. And we would have been kind of stuck down this road after those 5 months. So just thinking about, hey, who's your user? What are their problems? How do you first solve those problems? And then you can figure out the best way to get those Web3 components in, I think is really important. I think the second thing I'd add is, it's really easy to fall victim to our Web3 bubble, to be on crypto Twitter, to see the things those everyone on there cares about. But there's obviously a world outside of that as well. And I think there's so many problems out there that crypto and that Solana could be used to solve. And I would encourage, whether it's touching the grass mentality, whether it's getting off crypto Twitter for a bit, I would just encourage thinking about the broader landscape out there and how we can use Solana to actually benefit folks who might not be in our ecosystem already, and bring them in. They can be the crypto Twitter users of tomorrow, but let's get them in first.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I really need to end my Twitter addiction. It's been a problem even on Thanksgiving break. I'm like, why am I looking at this all the time? But Emon, thanks so much for coming on. If obviously you're a founder, if you're not in Solana or you're looking at Solana, I'm going to put a link in the show notes. So go apply. You have like 10 days left, so get after it. And yeah, Emon, thanks so much for coming on. I'm really pumped to see this incubator. It's really, really awesome. And it's great again to see Solana focus on product, not just infrastructure.
Exactly. No, Garrett, Mert, really appreciate you guys having me at solanaincubator.com for folks that are interested. I'm also active on crypto Twitter as well. Inevitably, I'm at Emon Motamedi. So if you have any questions, feel free to just DM me there as well.
Beautiful. All right, mate. We'll see you next time.
Thanks so much, guys. Take care. Bye.
Hold up. Got one more thing for you. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, hit subscribe. But even more importantly, we still have our Black Friday discount going on right now for Blockworks Institutional Crypto Conference. It's happening in London this March. You probably heard me talk about it earlier in the show. Remember, this discount code that you can use for 20% off is BlackRock Lightspeed. BlackRock Lightspeed. Go use that discount code and I'll see you there.